Yeah, we can go ahead and dive in. So John Pinkster, one of the lead engineers here at Maestro, and super excited to have brought Mighty to this community and just the fun community that we've built. We do these meetups typically the fourth Tuesday of every month. However, this month and obviously last month, we changed some things up just based on schedules. And then we'll get back to our normal cadence. So if anyone had signed up through the Maestro community and got all of the original invites, obviously there's a little bit of offshoot between last month and this month, but we'll be back on our normal cadence next month. So all
July
these videos can
2nd.
also be found in our YouTube channel as well. So maybe you're watching that from in there, but if you ever miss any of these, you can jump in to either MC or to YouTube, and those will be found in those spots. Anything to add there, Sid?
Nope, I just put in the chat that the next one is on July 22nd. So,
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. So for those who haven't been to a meetup before, we love to keep it casual. As Sid kind of started this out with, feel free if you want to go off camera or on camera. When we get into some of the Q&A, feel free to unmute and ask questions. Don't feel obligated to have to type out your question, especially as we know some of those might have follow-ups and whatnot. So we'd love to just chat with you more and more in the community. So feel free. This is a great opportunity to get more of that like one-on-one time with us. So love that you all are here. And what we walk through is really just like new features slash the things that we're working on here at Maestro to try to get out to all of you. And then we do a community spotlight to kind of showcase off some things that we are seeing in the community that people are doing, as well as just kind of like use that opportunity to show and tell some fun things that are happening here, which we've got a fun thing for that today. And then we dive into a Q&A. This could be either directed at that community spotlight, new features, general questions that maybe you've got about Mighty that we could certainly answer. And then last, we'll just wrap it up with a product demo for anyone who's either new or just kind of wants to sit back and watch the full picture of what Mighty can do. So we'll definitely walk through that as well. So to dive in, I've got fun updates on all sorts of topics today. So super excited to walk through these. Really starting at the top, performance updates. For anyone who's kind of been around over the last couple of years or year and a half with Mighty, you may have noticed kind of in that April timeframe, there was some performance issues where Mighty may have had some impacts on some larger courses. And we've been working super diligently on trying to get those all updated. And even with our latest release last week, Monday, continuing to move the needle on that. I think that one would have been felt pretty significantly by everyone and giving them a much needed boost when authoring courses, especially larger lessons inside of Rise. So that's super exciting. I had mentioned this in a post that we had put into the Maestro community that we are continuing to make more and more progress on this just because we've made or moved the needle significantly. We're not going to put that down because we know some of you may still be running into a couple of performance update or performance issues. And so we're going to continue to work on that just to try to give you guys very closely aligned performance situation that you've got when authoring Rise natively to when you had the Mighty extension. So just wanted to give an update there. I know I've gotten a lot of good feedback from others saying that as soon as that release went out Monday, they like felt like things are chugging along pretty great inside of Rise. And we've also seen a couple of other people who are still just running into some things. So we're excited to just continue to push that further and further. So yeah, let us know if you've got issues that you're running into. We could certainly dive in further there. But otherwise, hopefully you guys are all feeling like things are starting to move fast. The next thing that I want to talk about is the interactive HTML block and an update that dropped for that recently. And with the interactive HTML block, that's where you're able to add custom code into a block inside of your Rise course. And let me just kind of show off the example for that. So if I'm in a Rise course and, I've gone over into the block library and I've added this interactive HTML block into my course, you're going to notice that it's going to look slightly different, and you may or may not notice, but if you do, there's some UI updates that we've done. We've eliminated one of the confusing questions a lot of people had asked us about this like ability to match content height. And really, that's just now natively going to happen with this block. So really what should happen is as soon as you drop in an interactive into your course, it'll automatically adjust the block's height for you. You don't need to necessarily worry about all of that. You can still adjust the content width to match up with the rest of your content as you scroll. And then some of the autocomplete interactions and just kind of giving you more information about how that works. And so we've certainly updated more information as well in our help center, which I'll cover in a little bit. So it just gives you a little bit more of this like fresh, clean UI that we're continuing to push out the door. If you need more space, you can certainly expand this up higher, as well as we've added this run button. So for anyone who is utilizing this extra spot to type in some CSS or JavaScript to enhance your interactive even further, you get a little bit more room to do that. And then the run button allows that functionality to run when you're ready. So for those who are developers and typing into those spaces, making sure that you've got control on when that fires is important. So just some updates that you're going to see here. A lot of these updates you're going to start to see also get rolled out to the other existing blocks that we've got released. And with that allows us to just like start to move the needle further on a lot of requests that have came in with some of the existing Mighty blocks. So that's like the foundation structure that we're doing right now is flipping these over from the old system to the new system. And then from there, we should be able to do a lot of rapid development on updating these blocks and adding new blocks, which is going to be exciting. And you may have seen as you're with me, a developer, I open up the block library and there's all sorts of other new blocks here, which I'm not going to talk about today, but a little sneak peek into some other things that we're continuing to work on with the new block library. So, but yeah, that's the update to the interactive HTML block that you all should have seen at this point if you're using that. And again, more updates to come kind of in that block space. The next thing is our rich text editor. So we had talked about this kind of a while ago, and we've been doing a lot of internal testing and fine tuning of our interactive or the rich text editor that we've got. So again, this is the idea of you like highlighting text, and it's this bar that shows up. And for those of you who've been using Mighty, this should look new. This is kind of our new condensed version of our old rich text editor. And there's a lot of new fun features in here. As an example, you can now search for like whatever font you're trying to find as opposed to having to scroll through the list. So that's going to be fun. We even talked about adding like a recently used font up at the top. So that'll be an exciting way for you to just like quick access some of those fonts. And we've also got other fun things that you could do where, let's say we get down to, we jump down to some of this text and maybe I want to highlight this text slightly differently. There's this like inline code view or inline code that you can do as well. So some of these other fun features that we're able to start introducing into the rich text editor as well. The spacing options, this actually allows you to like arrow up, arrow down with some of the line height and letter spacing. You can actually type in your line spacing and letter spacing as well. You don't have to choose from a pre-existing dropdown. So just again, gives you a lot more granular control. And then lastly, that I'll talk about here with this rich text editor, we have this idea of recently used, which I've talked about before as well within some of the Mighty mods, but now this is starting to roll out as well, just really across the board with rich text editor. So the recently used is going to be awesome as you guys are utilizing colors throughout your course and you use the color picker and you select a color in your course. That'll just pop right here into your recently used and then show up really anywhere you're kind of selecting text in some sort of mighty way. So that's the fun rich text editor. Yeah,
Hey,
good question, Nicole, about when. We are, which kind of jumps a little bit into our topic here. We are gonna release a space in MC. So we'll have a new space that people can opt into called Mighty Early Access. And what we want to do is first roll this out to anyone interested in getting access to features early, hence the early access name. So if you're interested in doing that, we'll most likely post that before the end of this week and start to get people interested and signed up for that. And then as you get into that group, we will start to roll out the updates for Rich Text Editor, as well as some of the other blocks. Like this will be kind of like your way to ease into some of these new features, give us feedback early on before then we launch it out to the larger audience. So I would imagine probably by end of June, early July, we will start to release this to everyone broadly. But over the next week and a half, 2 weeks, the early access crew would be able to start leveraging this and give us feedback as they're utilizing it. So that will, yeah, roll out very, very soon. Um, the question about acting as a beta, I'm curious to learn more about that. I don't know if you want to unmute and I can just answer that question.
I think Cherie, oh, there she goes.
Hi.
Hey,
No, I'm just wondering if this is like a beta, you know how other companies release software and we provide feedback on it, like just for functionality and stuff. Is it going to be like that?
yeah, that kind of idea. We are avoiding the language beta because that implies maybe it's not ready yet. And we want it to feel like it's definitely more ready for showtime. But just trying to get more feedback and make some adjustments if there are some confusions or anything needed like that. So yeah, that kind of a program concept. Just getting early access into some of those features. So yeah. So yeah, if you're interested in that, we'll have a form go out that posts into the MC and people can sign up for that. Thanks, Shreese.
Thanks.
Um, cool. So that is kind of my high level updates across Rich Text Editor. We've got the blocks updates. We've got this early access group that we're going to make inside of MC. You guys may have also saw in the Maestro community that we are also trying to introduce just another Mighty support space just to kind of help delineate between general questions that maybe you've got for the larger Maestro community, or if there's specific like Mighty features, feature requests, or if you're running into some various issues. That's where kind of that support channel comes into play. So feel free to drop really a note in any of these spaces if you're confused on where you want it to go. No problem. We can certainly help move them into the right space based on what kind of questions you've got. But the general idea for the Mighty support space is just like you're running into a bug or you've got some like general questions / issues that you've got specific to Mighty, certainly drop a note in here. And as always, we jump in quick, help answer questions. You'll often see myself in there trying to figure out what's going on and get things up and running. So just another space change that we've done in MC as well. I don't know, Sid, if there's anything else that you got to add there.
Just that the Mighty users space is still the best place to go if you're like kind of looking for inspiration or brainstorming with other community members. Kind of the place to, yeah, inspire and grow and push yourself a little bit. That's still in the Mighty users space. And like Pinkster said, more of the troubleshooting goes into Mighty support.
Nice. Cool. Well, so that's all the items that I had that I wanted to chat about as some of the new features and whatnot that we're working on. Again, super excited to get that out to you all. I want to hand things over to Amy. She's actually going to be a part of our community spotlight because we've got this fun thing called Art School happening, which I know some of you are already involved in. And I want to give her an opportunity just to talk about that a little bit further, as well as show off some fun things that they're doing in the art school that applies to Mighty. So I'm going to go ahead and hand that over to you.
Thank you. And I'm actually gonna just share my screen and hand it over to Sid first.
I'm
Because
going to do a little intro.
she has all the details that I'm not great at. So let me, whoop,
Yeah.
there we go.
So we're going to do a little bit of an intro for the spotlight today. We just wanted to give a sneak peek into how Mighty shows up inside of art school, which is our new course for learning creators. So quick intro, if you haven't heard about art school yet, it's a self-paced course. And we've basically bottled up all of the visual design skills and know-how from our LXD team into a course. There's a lot of resources out there, like in the learning world, focused on instructional design, but we just noticed there wasn't a lot when it came to the visual design side for your courses. And it's something that a lot of you and a lot of people in our community ask us about because our team's pretty well known for visual design. And so we decided, like I said, to bottle that up, and that's where art school comes in. And for this group, I know you guys probably will not be surprised that we integrated Mighty into the course because it's such a core part of our process now, and it plays a really big role in helping us push the boundaries of what's possible in Rise and achieve the designs that we're so excited to share and that, you know, don't look so risey. And actually, Mighty is included in the price of art school. So the whole price of art school is $497, but you get 3 free months of Mighty. If you're already signed up for Mighty, it acts as a credit. And if you're not, then it adds 3 months free of Mighty, which is awesome. But in the course is about creating great visual design in Rise, and the course is actually built in Rise. And we used Mighty to create some custom interactives, like we've talked about with the custom HTML block in the course, because there were things that we wanted to do that we couldn't quite do. So our dev team helped us with that. And then we also brought Mighty into module 9, which is the last module, and it's the design studio where it really pulls all of the content together and where you're able to walk through course design with Amy. And so we wanted to give you just a little bit of a sneak peek, like we were saying, into what how we used Mighty in art school, and then like a little bit into the before and after of the course that you would create with Amy at the end of it. So Amy, if you want to give show those cameos of Mighty in art school, I think that would be great.
For sure. So I've just been scrolling through. This is actually our first course. So just like Sid said, we have used Rise. We've used Mighty to actually create the modules that you're going to be really viewing and using as you're going through art school. And then you'll see a lot of really great videos throughout where I either like teach you about a design fundamental or walk you through a practice, and we're doing everything side by side. So what's great about the videos too is you can like pause, rewind, go back to something if you're feeling like I went through it too quickly. And so we just wanted to show you like different ways that we are using Mighty throughout our normal courses that you're seeing. So for instance, we have our reflection block, even little things like having in like a little thumbnail, a new thumbnail in our download attachment blocks, which was a request from me specifically for art school. But here's an example of one of our design fundamentals, which is white space. And as I scroll down, here's another video. We have an example of how we use the Mighty Interactive HTML. And we actually created like, so white space is all about padding and having enough, obviously, white space in your course. And so one of the things that we teach you is just how important it is to adjust the padding. In fact, for those of you that have joined and have taken art school, you're probably like never going to forget that because I'm crazy about it. But this is a cool interactive that we made where you're kind of copying how you use padding inside of Rise. So it's like, okay, let me think. I think, that's pretty good here. And then you submit it. And then really, it's not like a right or wrong. It's just kind of comparing yours versus ours. So it's just a fun little interaction that we've added in, and we have a lot of these sprinkled throughout to kind of have you challenge yourself on what you've just learned. And then as I continue to go through, then let me try and mute this super quick. Then we have like these practice opportunities where we've provided you 2 courses. One is the practice course, and we're doing things together that we just learned about for each of these fundamentals. And then what I did want to show you, which is a little bit hard because it's super zoomed out, is in our final, I guess, module, we take everything that we learned and we start with this boring, very plain Jane course here on the left, and together using Rise, Mighty, and assets that I give you, we create this beautiful course together. And so we have we do have ways of getting around some of these if you don't use Mighty, but the idea is that, you know, together we can make the size of this typography much larger if we want to have some nice hierarchy throughout. We're doing some cool tricks with gradients. So this is actually a gradient background, some really cool layouts, things that you're not thinking about. Even like changing a bulleted list that you normally would be provided with, or you know, that you would want to use, and thinking about it differently. So this isn't specific to Mighty, but just showing you different ways that we're thinking about design throughout this entire course. And then another one that I wanted to call out specifically is just even thinking about, okay, normally you would have a knowledge check for your learners. This is like a typical one that's built into Rise. And then this is how we've taken that idea and made it more visual. And so we've used Mighty's reverse hotspot and just having a more fun visual way to quiz your learners using Mighty. So I don't want to give away too much, but this is kind of the final product of what we do together. And there's a whole lot of really great steps to get there. And I walk you through everything that I'm thinking about, good and bad, a lot of ums and ahs and I don't know, but that's kind of what we do. That's how we go through that whole process. So I wanted to make it as real as possible. And then what's really great too is we have a just like MC, we have an art school space. And in here, we have a lot of great content. So all of the courses, a resource library, so tons of resources that we've made for you, different live events that actually only happen within a certain time period, really great discussion. So that is a little bit about art school. And I don't know if there are any questions or not.
Pinkster, that one question looks more like a question for you. Can results?
Yeah, I started to type the answer. So Jennifer asked a great question about the results of the reverse hotspot being tracked like a knowledge check. And that, so first, knowledge checks, the way that they work in Rise is that they more or less like could block progress. So if you use them around continue buttons, you just can't move on until you've answered those knowledge checks. And we certainly do that as like a feature parity with our existing knowledge checks through the reverse hotspot, where you could put a continue button after that, prevent the learner from moving on until it's completed. I like, and maybe I'm assuming where you're leaning into, the idea of could it report potentially to SCORM? It may or may not be actually where you're going with that, but you certainly could. We have an ideas list that we pull together frequently. That would be another fun one where we could actually do some SCORM reporting for the reverse hotspot to just like validate that they answered all of the reverse hotspot locations correctly or what the attempts were. You could certainly capture that as an interactive and mark that as completed, which right now you may or may not know, but knowledge checks don't actually have any SCORM reporting in them at all. And with one of our new Mighty Blocks that we're going to introduce, it actually will have more of the SCORM interaction data collection, which is great. So right now you only get that with quizzes, but not with knowledge checks. So, but yeah, back to your follow-up. Yep, just the continue button piece. Yep, that certainly is up and running now.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Jennifer. And thanks, Amy, for walking through Art School and just kind of showing a sneak peek of some of the Mighty tidbits in there. I know we've had some awesome feedback from the people who have started to go through Art School, specifically about that module 9 where you're walking through it with Amy, because she just really is sharing like the behind the scenes thoughts on how she's thinking through her design decisions. So not only are you actually going in and practically applying the design fundamentals that you learned, you get to kind of get inside Amy's brain. And that's something that you can also apply to future course designs, just like how to think about your course differently. So anyways, we wanted to make sure this group knew about Art School because Mighty users are like, they're getting in there and they're on the cutting edge. They want to make their courses better. They're always trying to level up. And this is another way you can do that. If you're the type of person that's kind of gone through our YouTube videos and just can't get enough of the tips and tricks, this is one more thing to help you level up your courses. So if Art School is interesting to you, we just wanted to offer this meetup group specifically a little bit of a discount. So if you guys want to join, I'm going to put a coupon code in here right now, MM20 for Mighty Meetup. You'll get 20% off. Also, if you're on the call and you already signed up for Art School, don't worry, like I can refund you the 20% because we would totally honor that if you're on this call. So just message me or email me if you already are in Art School and missed this awesome 20% off deal. Art School enrollment closes on Friday. So if you are interested, now is the time. And if you have any questions on Art School or anything else that Pinkster talked about today, I think this is a good transition into Q&A. Oh, thank you, Megan. Megan on the call today is in Art School, halfway done. Definitely recommend. Thanks so much, Megan. Yeah, good feedback. Lots of great energy in there. Just like there is in here. So yeah, hop in with any questions.
Yeah, anyone have any questions just generally either about Art School, Mighty, where we're heading next?
Just to comment on Kelly's note, waiting for manager approval to enroll. We do on the website have a approval toolkit with a couple of items in there to help with those conversations. But also I wanted to mention Art School will open for enrollment again this fall. So if you miss out on it this time, just know it is an offer that we will continue to offer, but probably only a couple of launches a year.
Thanks. Anyone else have any questions they want to throw out to us? Going once, twice. Cool, because the next thing I'm going to dive into.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was trying to type mine out. Go ahead. It can be answered in the chat.
No, yeah, feel free, TJ, if you want to say it. I'd love to have you out.
Okay, I just kind of wanted to know about how much time should we allot for doing the Art School course? Like how many hours would you
Yep.
to get through it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it is 9 modules. We were estimating at least like 7 hours to get through the content. And then you do have lifetime access to the content. So if you're going through it the first time, you can always go back and you have access forever and ever. And then as we're launching new ones, you'll have access to any updated material that we create as well. But we're estimating about 7 hours to get through the content.
Is that including the work on your own, or is that just?
Yes, that would include. So like when you're going through the modules and there's the practice portions, that would include that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to put my email also in the chat in case anybody, I see one message at least about my email. In case you did already purchase art school, and you're gonna get that 20% refund. Pinkster, do you see the Firefox plugin question?
Yep. Yeah, Jennifer, right now it is just Chrome/Chromium apps, which cover Edge as well. So it does work in both Edge and Chrome. No movement yet on a Firefox plugin. I know that's definitely been requested a couple times. We are actually also looking into, yeah, and by you. I didn't want to call you out, but that is your go-to, and I love it. Keep drumming that. We also are looking at releasing an installable version potentially down the road. The advantage there would be anytime there are updates that come from Rise, we have to respond to those changes and fix the Chrome extension. And so if we were to create more of an installable app, then we could actually push a lot of those updates faster. So there's some potential there that you would basically just be in kind of like a Mighty application that launches Rise, and you would be working in this like fun companion app on your desktop. So that actually would probably come well before the Firefox extension. So TBD though, that's definitely a conversation that we're having these days. So
Got some love on that one, just so you know.
yeah, yeah, that'll be a good one. Again, we typically fix anything that does come up with reaction to changes that Rise makes within an hour or less, to be honest. I mean, it's usually typically fast, but our release process is handcuffed a bit by the Chrome Store or Edge Store approval workflow, which takes a couple of days. So for those of you who've been in MC where we've had fixes and we just push up a local version of the extension that you can install in the meantime before the Chrome Store version gets updated, this would kind of bypass that whole workflow because you would more or less just hit a refresh button in that app and it would automatically pull all the latest changes. So it would be a very, very fast way for you to get all the latest and greatest from our team. Any other questions before I dive into a demo? Cool. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Before I do that, just a reminder, as Sid had brought up, our next meetup is going to be July 22nd. And we'll be back on our normal fourth Tuesday of the month cadence, and super excited to have someone from our community come out and show off all these fun, awesome things that he's been making inside of his Rise course using AI. So that'll be another one of those fun demos. So there's a little sneak peek teaser there. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and switch over to our demo app. For anyone else who wants to stick around, happy to have you. For all those who joined and are gonna bail, thanks, and we'll see you at the next one. I am curious as I dive into the demo, how many of you are new to Mighty, or maybe even have never used Mighty? So feel free to drop a comment in the chat as I start to walk through this demo. That'll help guide me as I'm walking through things, how maybe deep I could go with some of the more advanced things, or broad, I should kind of keep things to do a good cover of everything else. So let me know if anyone is new. Otherwise, I might find myself down some fun rabbit holes for all of you who've been around for a while. So for those who are maybe watching this on YouTube or are new, Mighty is a Chrome extension that we built on top of Rise, all born through the efforts of our internal team wanting to do more in Rise. We built a fun tool internally to do that and turned around and just made it a product for everyone else. So it's super exciting to be able to see this community grow significantly and be able to see this, the impact we've been able to make across all the L&D spaces. As soon as you install the Chrome extension, you'll just see that available here inside of your browser. And as soon as you're in Rise, you're going to just start to notice all sorts of fun things like our Mighty Assistant down here, as well as all these different magenta colors throughout your course. And essentially every time you see those, it's some sort of indication that Mighty has been involved. So down in our Mighty Assistant, I do like to just kind of walk through a couple of things, and these will be helpful tips for you as you're like trying to continue to stay latched on to all the things that are happening in Mighty, or if you want to dig in deeper. We've got our help center that you can certainly jump into, as well as our Maestro/Mighty community, which we've already talked a little bit about the Mighty community, but the help center just has all sorts of good documentation on all of our features that we've been building. There's a lot of fun guides and commonly asked questions. We have a YouTube channel that you can check out as well. There's tons of videos out here. Anything from just like feature tutorials to like how to do all sorts of fun advanced things using some of the existing blocks or power-ups. We also have version history if you want to be nerdy and look at all the fun releases that we've got, and all the fun things that we're fixing. And then back to the Maestro community. This is just a larger Maestro community that we have for all instructional designers in the space and things that you want to learn more about, and all of fun tips and tricks inside of Rise. We also, around fun holidays, post images that you could have as like your desktop backgrounds and things like that, like little comic strip things. So there's a lot of cool things that you can get out of here. But in the Mighty user space, this is a great spot to post like thoughts and ideas and get other community members to jump in on and share thoughts and ideas. We also have this whole code catalog, which I certainly would love to walk through as we get a little bit more of like a deeper dive today in this demo, as well as that Mighty support channel. So if you got any issues at all, there's several ways to do that. This Mighty user or Mighty support space, as well as just in this assistant, you could report a bug or email our community. And we'll be able to reach out through all of those various avenues. So just lots of fun links that you can find throughout here. And then as we really start to dive into the features of Mighty at a high level, there's this idea of power-ups, which is just like really this overarching feature where you can modify your Rise course as a whole. And then from there, we've got what are considered blocks and mods. So as we get into, I'll just dive right into our after example lesson. As we look at this lesson here, we've got mods where you can take an existing Rise block, like this is our columns block. And if we wanted to tighten up the space or create larger spaces, this is how you'd be able to do that with these mods. Or if you've got the notes block, like as an example, this is what a notes block looks like out of the box with Rise. And then using this Mighty Mods menu, you can do all sorts of fun trickery where you can change the border radius, or you can remove that background or the border itself, and you can change out the icon and position it and give space it, like all sorts of great things that you really wish inside of like one of these built-in Rise menus, it had these configurations, but they just don't have support for those. So that's where those Mighty mods comes into play, just enhancing existing Mighty functionality. And then lastly is our Mighty block list. So as I was mentioning with this interactive HTML block, being able to take any sort of like custom interactive that you want to make. And what you could do is you could just drop this block in your course. You just drag in a zip file of code. And what that would do is it would automatically add in some fun interactive that you maybe have built. And so here's an example of a interactive that one of our community team members had made, and it allows you to take a pause on your learning and do kind of this like fun puzzle and show off knowledge checks along the way, and it's timed and there's a leaderboard. So there's just like all sorts of fun things that you could do. Again, this is just like an example of something that someone made. I want to get to the point where it does like another knowledge check. So let me snap a couple more of these together. Yeah, there's that. And oh, there it is. I was like, where's the face? So then you see like, here's a knowledge check. So you can ask like a knowledge check, and then if I get it wrong, or if I get it right, I get to move on. If you get it wrong, you're like penalized with your time left. And so then there's this whole like fun leaderboard thing. So again, this is like just peer into like anything that you want built. And we've got other meetups that we've done where people have shown off some of the fun interactive HTML blocks that they've built. Here's another example of like a slider interactive where you can see just a tile of different pieces of content. You can open these up to learn more. And then once you've opened those up, they kind of get marked as done. So you're just kind of going through like a slide wheel. A lot of people in our community are utilizing this interactive HTML block in tandem with AI tools like Claude or ChatGPT to build these custom interactives based on your thoughts and ideas. As an instructional designer, you may not have any coding background, but you want to build something fun and cool, and you don't want to do it in Storyline because you want all the responsiveness that web development gives you that Storyline does not. So utilizing those tools and then this block, you could really just build up any fun, cool, interactive that you want to build inside of your course. So yeah, I see Sydney posted into the chat here that meetup that we had done where we were showcasing off some of these examples and really talking through that. And again, in our next meetup, we're going to have another community member walk through more of these types of ideas, just to give you guys some inspiration there as well. So that's the interactive HTML block. There's all sorts of other fun blocks that we've built as well. So here's an example of a transition block. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. But as people saw in the art school course that Amy was showing off earlier, if you go into our block library and you drop in this transition, it automatically can add a transition. This is a situation where we've got like a background image on a spacer. And so it automatically masks this with this transition. Transition has all sorts of fun presets and you can customize those. So all sorts of cool ways that you can leverage these transition blocks. And again, doesn't have to necessarily be behind backgrounds, but could literally be behind all sorts of background colors. And so you can kind of transition some of those to flow well. I've actually seen people stack like several transitions on top of each other to kind of like build this like fun little wavy thing throughout their course. So again, there's just like all sorts of cool ways people have been using this like transition block. Transition block also has the ability to not only just be shapes, but you can also do more of like these line-based dividers. So the typical go-to in Rise would be this divider block, but the divider block doesn't really have a lot of customization to it. So again, if we just set the background color here, like this is all you get. There's no ability to change the size of it. It just is this gray divider. And that like there's really nothing you can change about it. But with our transition block, you could drop in this line, you could make it a horizontal line. In the custom settings, you can decide what the content width of that is. You can decide the thickness, so we could actually even make this even thicker. You can change that stroke color and all sorts of things. So again, just like really allowing you to add a lot of these like design pieces throughout your course to help emphasize pieces or help transition out of content. So just really fun, cool way to be able to play with all that. And then I know Amy also showed off in her course that if you want to do this like fun, like bleeding of a block from one section to another, we also have in this menu a new gradient option. So you could actually grow gradient and you'll see it's very subtle, but from white to this like light tannish color, we can turn off this inherit and you could certainly do a custom color if you wanted. But what's really fun is you could do this like whole blending thing. So let's just say we don't want it to blend and we want it to start like halfway through. That's where you could get this more like transitional background where it just bleeds from white to tan as a hard line. So that's kind of a cool way to do that. Typically, you'd have to like leave Rise, go into Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator and build out an image and hope you get the image size right and hope it doesn't compress it and look all grainy. And this just actually just adds it right for you, just using the fun powers of HTML. So great ways that you can just like really enhance some of the designs of your course. We had also added a lot of like fun, like authoring enhancements for you guys. I mean, obviously you've seen with the the custom color picker, and I've kind of like briefly used that, but this eyedropper here grabs literally any color on my screen. In fact, I don't even need to be in Rise. Like I could go grab the blue from my shirt, and that'll make the background color. Well, it should, hold on, let's see. Let's see, background color, custom. All right, well, that's not refreshing, but let's do this block up here. Change this color to be the blue of my shirt. There we go. And so you're just able to use any color picker anywhere. The other thing that I showed off is the ability to, and if we were to go to this block here, go into like these different mods or what's coming with the rich text editor. This whole like recently used color thing is great. So again, you don't have to keep memorizing hex colors. You can just leverage those right from a recently used palette. To the ability to move blocks around. So if anyone's dropped in a block halfway in your course and then now you wanted to move a block or a chunk of blocks, it's very painful because you have to hit this down button and like chase it as it moves. And that's a very annoying, painful process. But what you could now do is just open up our little quick sort menu and find the block that you're looking for, which this is the note block. And then you can literally just drag it up to where you want to go. So you're noticing maybe very subtly as I highlight over or hover over these different blocks, it kind of indicates where we're at. So we're going to move this note block up below the other note block, and then it just automatically moves it for you. And again, you could even grab a series of blocks. Like let's say we wanted to grab this spacer all the way down to this paragraph. You can just shift click, grab a bunch. Or if you wanted to just grab like this successful collaboration and then this paragraph, you could even command click. So all those fun options that you would be normally used to through other tools, being able to do that as well within this quick sort menu. And then if you get real wild and want to play with power-ups and specifically custom code lets you do all sorts of fun development on top of your course beyond your typical block or mod that you want to add into your Rise course. There's all sorts of fun things that you can do. And as I'd mentioned, inside of Circle here or the MC Maestro community, we've got the code catalog. And the code catalog has all sorts of CSS or JavaScript for different things that you could do within your course. Shout out to Tim. Tim's been dropping a lot of custom code blocks in here for you guys to be able to leverage. This latest one today was a cool carousel transition to be able to see those. So really being able to just jump into MC, open up these cards. A lot of times we've got either a video or a YouTube video that shows off what this does. And then below you would find the snippet of code. And in this situation, this one happens to be a little bit larger. So appreciate him just really dropping in a file that then you'd be able to download and load that in. So I'll kind of go through that experience here. Being able to just open that up. I'm going to open this up into a IDE editor called Cursor. And like really, you'd be able to just copy all of this code that was written, and then you go back into your Rise course, and then you just paste in that code here. And he had mentioned in the post that you would just need to update whatever your block ID is. And so that's the next part I want to talk about. In order to get access to those block IDs, there's kind of really two ways to do that. You could go through your course, and as you hover over each of these blocks, you're going to see this block ID that you could just click this little copy icon, and that's going to copy your block ID. You'll notice that this one is specifically just looking for the ID itself versus what it copied, which has these square brackets and double quotes and whatnot. So you wouldn't necessarily need all of that. And that's one way you could grab it. The other way that you can grab these that I want to make sure I mention is through the quick sort. And the reason that you'd want to do that is because if you want to get a block ID for something that's deeper in your course, maybe it's on like the 5th lesson and it's a gated course, and my gosh, you don't want to go through that whole process and click all of your required buttons to get there. So what you could certainly do is just jump right into that lesson, which by the way, we also have this lesson switcher. So we can go to the last lesson, open up quick sort, jump to, like, let's say we wanted to do something on this paragraph with heading block, and then you can just right click here, which would give you that block ID. So then that block ID is more or less exactly what the power up would need. So couple of ways to get access to the block ID, either through this quick sort menu or just directly in that power up custom code section. And again, there's just a lot of fun options in here. You can also filter this list down based on the specific thing you're looking to do. So if it's an accordion block that you're trying to modify, just filter this down and see what options here exist for the accordion block. And then we'll just continue to build out more and more of these as people have thoughts or ideas or come up with something cool and you want to just drop that in. I had mentioned in our last meetup that we did open this up so you could create your own new post, send that to our team. We'll review that and maybe clean up some of the structure of it just to make sure it matches the rest of these for consistency across the board. And then you would totally get notice for you posting those. So lots of fun things that exist in here already.
Hey,
Not a-
Pinkster, can you look at TJ's comment
Yup,
about power-ups versus interactive HTML block?
yeah. Yeah, I don't know, TJ, if you want to unmute, maybe we can even talk about this more. You want me to just kind of clarify when you would use the interactive versus the power up?
Yeah, when I first went into the themes and then I clicked on the thing under
Yep,
is in there.
this
Yes, and I
guy.
clicked on custom code and then it sent me back to the power ups.
Yep.
So I was really confused about when I should use which. I mean,
Yes. Yep. So this was where custom code lived at the beginning of Mighty. And honestly, it's probably been long enough that people no longer really go here. So we're going to remove this area from theme. I do know there's a lot of videos, if you've watched older videos, that refer to this location here. So again, just kind of helps you know, oh, well, custom code is moved to that power up section. So really leveraging that within here is where you'll want to do that at. Do you want me to talk a little bit further about like how custom codes different than the interactive HTML block?
yes, exactly that.
Cool. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so the reason they're different is because with the interactive HTML block, if you want to think about this, this is more at a individual location on your lesson of what type of custom code interactive experience you're trying to build. And so it's very narrowed into just this section on my lesson that I want to introduce this experience for. So as I've kind of showed off a couple of instances where these are like specific interactions that flow well with the content that we've got thus far in my lesson. Where that's different from the power up is that the power up is really holistic across the entire course. So a couple of examples that I could talk about with power ups are, let's say you wanted to create some sort of like glossary terms or glossary within your Rise course, where you want to make it so there's like a little floating action down below, and you want that found throughout every single lesson of your course, and you want to be able to have people launch that open and have a list of all of their like terms that they want to use throughout their course and be able to like see the definitions and whatnot. But it's not specific to a one lesson, and within that lesson even just like a section. It's like across the board a change that you want to make that's visible. So that's really where that power up custom code comes into play, and why that's different is because, again, that's going to run really across your entire course versus the interactive HTML block is just isolated into a specific lesson. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great question. Yeah, a fun example of that as we're getting close to time, but I could probably drop this in really quickly, is if we go up to this filter here, I'm going to filter down to custom. And then inside of this custom area, we have this AI chatbot that we've got like a video that kind of walks through how to add this. But this will certainly give us some idea as to how this power up works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and download these files, and then I'm going to open those into that code editor tool that I've got. And we're just going to go ahead and copy both of these over into the power up section. So I'm going to drop in this CSS, and then I'm going to drop in this JavaScript. We're going to hit run, or sorry, we're going to hit save. And then actually I'm going to go to the preview, and this should, well, it's hard to see because we've got this Mighty logo sitting over top of it. So let me just remove that real quick. So what we've got here is we've got this like little chat window that opens up, and now I'm able to like chat with an AI assistant across the board as I'm in and out of this course. And so I'm in a specific lesson right now. And if I were to go back out all the way to the main cover page here, and I jump from the cover page to a specific lesson and whatnot, I'll have all of that chat history with me as I go through and I ask it questions. And I don't kind of lose that as I go from lesson to lesson to lesson. So again, just continuing to showcase off, like that's where the power up really comes into play, is being able to build out something that really is more across your entire course. So lots of good custom code ideas in here that like changes up the way that the image block works. And so you could do that across all image blocks or specific image blocks if you wanted to. So like some fun CSS that people have came up with. So it's a specific way to replicate recalling a variable in storyline somehow in Rise. I'm thinking about recalling reflection entries. Yes, Jennifer, that's a good question. There are certain techniques that you could create more of these like what could be considered like global variables that you could re-leverage throughout your course. I know certainly I have played around with that concept, and even specifically with the reflection block. So I didn't really necessarily demo that, but with the reflection block, it's an open-ended question that asks a question to the learner that we could store into SCORM. Now, there is a way that you can recall that data back out of SCORM. But you could also certainly within the power up section, if we were to create more or less like a window dot like custom variables, and this is just like an empty object that you could create. And then what you could do is you could write some JavaScript that along the way of doing certain things updates this more like global variable that then you'd be able to recall later on in your course. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm certainly happy to dive further into this thought or idea. And maybe I could even make a YouTube video on this just to kind of showcase off this concept of what Storyline's doing with custom variables and how you could leverage that throughout different blocks. But conceptually, this idea of you've got the reflection block with Mighty, the learner has answered the question. You could either recall that from your LMS using the LMS SCORM interaction call in order to get that back out, or you could even just store their response in more of this like global window variable. And then from there, have another interactive HTML block that goes and grabs that variable and then utilizes it to display whatever the learner had typed in into that other section later. Now, that being said, we do have plans to update the reflection block to do more of this like summation version. So it's like you could have one block that's collecting information and then drop in another version of the reflection block that just presents the data that was entered in. That is actually just going to come with a reflection block here at some point this year. But the conceptual idea of window variables or custom variables is a fun one for sure.
Sounds like a YouTube video in the making.
Yeah. Nice. Well, I know we're at time. Appreciate all y'all sticking around. Again, we've got our next Mighty Meetup that we'll do the 4th Tuesday, July 22nd of next month. And again, super excited to have our community spotlight there where we'll be walking through some really fun custom interactions that have been made, all using AI and built with AI. So thanks. Appreciate it, everyone.
See ya, everyone.